This lady down the back here.
Hi, my name is Ronnie Ho from the Department of the Marine. I think this question is something that's kind of been on my mind for a lot today, and maybe it's Caroline's one that kind of really nailed it. You were showing there, Caroline, in your survey of the different types of professional people who are dealing with recreational spaces, to how their perception of it and how they would design it and what they thought people's value was out of it. And I think, would we all take from today and say that there's a real need to mainstream natural capital into professional training across a broad range of practices? I mean, we mentioned the accountants right from the start of today, but you've brought in engineers, planners. We have scientists and ecologists here today as well. But I think maybe the whole panel maybe might like to take that as a kind of what they would see and how they would see pushing that through the education and training agenda.
Yep, thanks very much. It's a really, really good point to make. We have actually started, I know several of us here teach at postgrad and undergraduate level, and it is part of our courses. And what we're trying to do now is also develop that for the engineering students in NUI Galway as one of the direct outputs from the first project, and it's linked to the second project. We've also delivered training to local authorities, but I think it's actually, the need isn't just to train the professionals. The need is to bring the professionals and the communities together where they can have time just to kind of say what nature means to them, what is of value to them in their area, and to actually kind of just make space for that dialogue so that green spaces can be kind of co-created and co-managed by communities as well as by professionals.
Yeah, so I think you hit the nail on the head there exactly, and we've started a conversation at Trinity as well, which puts natural capital at the centre of a new educational programme that will bring scientists together with engineers and co-educate them together, because there's a lot we can learn from the engineers as well. You know, if we're talking about putting in nature-based solutions, it's not just a case of us educating the engineers about what we think is important about natural capital, but also trying to learn from them about, you know, how we can use technology, build capital, infrastructure, you know, sort of embed those concepts back into how we deal with natural capital as well. So I think it's very much a two-way street, and we have much to gain from working together on this massive problem. So I'm really hopeful that we will have a revolutionized educational program from undergraduate all the way through to postgraduate over the next sort of 5 years.
Hi, my name is Deirdre Joyce, and I'm from UCD. I'm working on a project, EU-funded project, looking at socio-cultural valuation of ecosystem services. And it's similar to Caroline's study, but I asked the public what they thought about the natural environment through workshops. And part of the framework for ecosystem services, a lot of it comes from expert knowledge and economic knowledge, but the public's knowledge is equally important. And within the literature, it's called local ecological knowledge. And if we understand what they want, and then they define what the services are important, we might do things a bit differently with their their imprimatur. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. It's a missing piece today, asking what the public think, you know.
Yeah. Look, I agree with that. I would say that in terms of the valuation work, we would do. We would be very concerned with what are the preferences of the public and what are they looking for in terms of services. And we would have done, I suppose, similar studies in terms of asking the public about their attitudes towards the marine environment. And again, like you said there, we found it was interesting that, you know, what maybe the EPA might say about what are the critical issues from the marine environment perspective wouldn't be in agreement with what the public think. So, you know, why is that? Is it a matter of education? I'm not too sure. For instance, that, you know, they wouldn't have. We asked them. One of the questions we would have asked them was what they considered was the most potentially damaging. I can't remember how it was phrased in terms of the marine environment. And we had a whole list of sectors, and, you know, but they had climate change up there, but they couldn't see any damage from fishing or agriculture on the coastal margin. So it was just interesting that they were so out of sync with what the maybe experts would tell you are the main challenges. But we would go to, in terms of the valuations exercises we carry out, say contingent valuation or these choice experiments, we do try and factor in the different preferences that different groups in society would have as well. So I wouldn't say we ignore it.
From the workshops that we have run, we've gotten the same message, is that cultural services are extremely important. So I think in terms of quantifying that importance, we really need to try and define what we mean by those cultural services and what are the attributes of any one of those services that's most important, so that we have some description of them and we can build it into our models.
I'll just very, very quickly chip in to say that we are contacting community groups and working with community groups in the new project. That project was a very, very short, kind of one-year project. But it's a very good point. Thanks, Deirdre.
Just allow one more question for this lady at the front there. And then against advice from the organisers.
Just more of an observation than anything. It just really struck me post-Brexit just how negatively the European environmental directives are portrayed. And in fact, endlessly how negatively Europe is portrayed by the media. And it's endless EU bashing. And it's never like, well, do you want to live in a country where you can actually drink the water from Lough Corrib without worrying about cryptosporidium or not? So I think there's a huge role for promoting through the likes of the Irish Forum on Natural Capital, just that basic awareness of what we're at here, because it's just, it constantly gets muddied by a kind of an EU bashing and, oh, this is an EU directive that we have to do these things, as opposed to, well, this is actually in our public interest.
Okay, I think we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much to a wonderful set of speakers on research, and I'll hand you back over to Jane.